This is the Skin in the Game VC podcast, hosted by Tom Wallace, entrepreneur turned venture capitalist and the managing partner at Florida Funders, along with Saxon Baum, general partner and head of investor relations at Florida Funders. You'll learn from the best about investing in early stage tech companies, so you too can gain the confidence and find the tools that help you succeed as an angel investor. Are you ready to get some skin in the game?
All right, welcome everybody to another edition of Florida Funders Skin in the Game podcast. Really excited to have you all with us this morning. And Sax, how you doing, buddy?
Great, Tom. We missed you last week. We had a great guest, but it's okay. We made it through, but happy to have you back. I'm nothing without my co-host. Let me say that.
Well, I don't know about that, but we have two exciting guests today. Not one, but two exciting guests, and we'll be introducing them here in a minute. But just for those of you who are new to the pod, we're excited to have you with us. We really aim this towards both our investors and founders, and all about learning together and growing and, learning from really smart people. And again, excited for our two guests this morning. So with that, you want to kick us off on the introductions?
Yeah, I'd love to introduce our guests. These are two very special people, very close to Florida Funders. And it's our first sister duo here on the podcast. We have Amy and Shannon Wu. Welcome, ladies, to the pod.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
Not only our first sisters on the pod, they're the first sisters we've ever invested in at Florida Funders.
Yeah, and it's a great story.
Two different companies, though. We'll get to that.
Good point. It's a great story. We invested in Amy's company, Manifest, first, and then Amy introduced us to Shannon. There was a good reference there, Shannon, if you wanted to know. She did not throw you under the bus there. It was a great reference from your sister. And so then we invested in Shannon's company, Open Home. Both are Fund 3 investments of ours. So let's hop into it.
Ladies, tell us a little. I don't know who wants to kick us off, but you got to tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and how your parents and like how you guys, you're both Stanford grads, which is, you're both super impressive. But,
the question is, what's in the water at the Wu household? I think that's where Tom's getting at.
Yeah.
Wow, growing up in the Wu household, yeah, it was fun. Let me tell you that. I mean, our parents are both MD, PhDs, scientists, intellectuals. So dinner table talks were always something interesting. Discussing a wide range of topics.
You weren't talking about the Kardashians?
Definitely not. We didn't have a television that we were really actively watching, TV. So we were spending a lot of time in the library, reading a lot of books, reading academic papers. So it got pretty deep, but I think it ultimately allowed us to kind of flourish and get really curious and go down our own different interests. So it was a fantastic childhood.
Now, were either of your parents entrepreneurs?
No, neither of them.
Yeah.
So
academic.
how did that come about?
I think.
Oh wait, well let me back up. Which one of you is older?
Shannon's
I'm
older.
the older one. Yep.
And what's the age difference?
It's about 3 years. Yep.
3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like growing up, even though on paper Shannon and I seem like we're so similar, we both went to Stanford. We were both management science and engineering at Stanford. We both look similar heights. Shannon is always the black sheep of the family. She was getting into Bitcoin in 2010, 2011. My parents were begging her to get a job at Google. And she was like, this new decentralized system is going to go take over the world. My parents please, if you could just work at this company called Facebook, that would be amazing. And and then I was much more on the path. I worked in finance. I got the right internships. My parents were okay, we don't need to worry about you, but Shannon over here, we don't know what she's creating for the world.
Right,
she started the entrepreneurial gene, and I feel like both of us.
Yeah, but then eventually I pulled her over to the dark side, after doing it for a few years.
She sat me down and said, if you continue down this career, you're going to end up as a VP at DoorDash.
Oh, God forbid. Save us. Stop the insanity.
So question for you guys. Were your parents disappointed when you decided to go the entrepreneurial route? Obviously now I hope that'd be different, but initially were they disappointed and or scared for the future?
It's so interesting, and I really do wonder what was going through them. I think for them, they understood that it was probably something that I just had to do. This traditional route, working that 9 to 5, working your way up, was not something that was really in the cards for me. And I think that was something that they kind of did have to watch from the sidelines a bit and worry about this, really winding path. And I remember in the early days of Maker and, joining a DAO, trying to explain to them, I don't really work at a company. We're doing, it's a decentralized autonomous organization. I've never met my coworkers and collaborators before in person.
Well, the whole DAO thing was always crazy to me too, just in fairness to your parents. Wait, you're going to have this committee that runs the company that vote? Like,
There's nobody running the business. Interesting.
Right. And you only know them by their screen names. You don't even know their real names, So it's like
even worse.
So I think, I think that was something that was a really fun journey for them as well. And so then, but eventually, Amy and I are always exceptionally close growing up. And so we always just talk through all the different things that were happening, going on. And eventually, I pulled her over to the dark side. So it's been a fun journey. It really has.
I remember my first week at Stanford, Shannon came into my freshman dorm room and she was like, this guy named Ben Horowitz is giving a talk at Stanford. Like, you have to go. I was like 6 days into being at school. I had no idea who Ben Horowitz was. The Hard Thing About Hard Things had barely come out from Andreessen. And she was like, this is what a venture capital firm is. This is who he is. This is his entire history. Like, you're going to this talk. And then because I went to that talk my freshman year, like within the first week of Stanford, I ended up interning at Andreessen after freshman year, which I thought was like a normal experience at age 18 to be walking amongst, those halls. But I only had that because Shannon told me who those people were and that I should even care. And so I felt like she even like gave me the lens to view Silicon Valley and understand, what some of that stuff was.
And Andreessen Horowitz ended up investing in your company, right?
And then full circle, they ended up investing this year. So we come all the way back to being a portfolio company now, which is amazing.
So my question is, because I have and we were talking a little bit before we started the pod, I have a brother that we're 13 months apart in age. So we're almost Irish twins. We missed it by a month. Mm-hmm. And we're both business guys and run companies, et cetera, et cetera. We're extremely competitive.
Oh, you think?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, just a little bit.
In everything. And like, so my question, are you guys competitive or are you more like always on the same team trying to help each other out? Or a little bit of both, right? How's that work?
I think I just copied Shannon my entire life. I don't even think we're competitive at all. I don't know if Shannon, you have a different perspective, but I feel like I just was little like Tweedledee, Tweedledum, and then I just was second banana to Shannon and did everything she did, and it was so easy for me.
Well, what a great role model you are, Shannon, and are.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. Being older sibling, of course.
Yeah, being older sibling. Yeah, I guess for me, it was more, the entrepreneurial journey can be so lonely, right? And it's so, there's so much fodder about that in the news. You hear about all these different epic stories, but in practice, there's a lot of really hard moments through that time period, a lot of hard decisions. Sure. And I think it was actually so wonderful to have a sister who, has gone through the same process and is able to talk through, all the different challenges that an entrepreneur might face, especially in the early years of company building. So I think in that sense, we were extremely blessed. But of course, we always have like differing opinions and perspectives, but that's part of the beauty, of what everybody brings to the table. But to have someone who really can be a sounding board and talk through different dynamics is wonderful. It's a pretty great setup.
Let's go back to Stanford. Tom and I did not go to Stanford, if you guys were wondering, and we did not go to Harvard either. But I know a lot of smart people that did go to Stanford, and it seems like a special, very special place. I've only been there one time. Can you guys talk a little bit about your experience there and how that kind of set you up for that entrepreneurial journey. Just like you said, Shan, 6 days being into college, you're going to see Ben and Andreessen speak. I mean, that's insane. Can you talk a little bit about Stanford and what you guys learned there and what you got out of it?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something in the water, I'll tell you that. In being in the heart of Silicon Valley, you pick up a lot through osmosis. And I credit a lot of my perspective and journey to Stanford and then the way and the culture that they really bring up the community in. I actually was selected to be on the Stanford Board of Trustees. There's one role for an undergraduate, and I ended up being that role. But
What
during
an
this,
honor that is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
oh, to be a fly on the wall, it really was really special. And over the years, I just become more and more grateful for those experiences. Jerry Yang, the founder of Yahoo, he was the chair of my committee. So, to really be able to see
Yeah, it's
some
pretty
of
good company.
right. And so to see some of these greats really, talk about the history of their companies, what they had gone through, I think it definitely was a source of inspiration. And looking back, I credit a lot to Stanford for sure. And Amy, I wonder about you.
I
You
feel
obviously had heard about it for quite some time before you had attended.
I remember Shannon and Jesse sat me down the day before I was about to start. Like the next day was move-in day for Stanford.
Just for everybody, Jesse is Shannon's partner in her business.
Yeah.
And husband.
Oh, and husband.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, I didn't know.
uh,
I thought it was fiance. I didn't know you guys got married. Congratulations.
We'll get into that story too later, Tom. You're going to love this one.
but yeah, Jesse and Shannon sat me down the day before I moved into Stanford, and they were like, do not ever say no to a late night conversation for some homework assignment or some midterm that you have to study for, because at the end of the day, when you leave Stanford, you will never remember the midterm that you took, but you will remember that like this kid in your freshman dorm was a chess grandmaster, and that someone else is going to found another company, and someone else just went and raised $100 million. And you kind of just never know who's going to be around. And so I feel like there's a lot of beauty in Stanford in that everyone is their own little special snowflake, and it doesn't even just need to be in tech. Like it can be in arts, it can be in politics, it can be in anything else. And that's kind of the beauty of like being there and feeling like, oh, like everyone is doing cool things, so I can just do cool things too, because this is the norm. This is the standard for all of us.
Well, I followed my brother to college as well. But
Oh,
the
great.
advice he gave me was quite a bit different.
What do you
It was never turn down a good party to study for a test, because you're not going to remember what you learned anyway. But you might meet somebody at that party and have a really great time.
It's same exact advice basically though.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my
Well,
God.
it's interesting because when you're around those types of people, and I was lucky enough growing up, my dad always said, hey, you can do whatever you want, right? And so when you're around those types of people at Stanford, it probably just pushes you and gives you that feeling that you really can do whatever you want.
Totally. I remember
Absolutely.
when I was at Stanford, I ran Stanford Women in Business, and very early on, they taught us to just start cold emailing like all of the female business leaders around the country. And so I was like a sophomore or junior, and I was like, so we would just guess emails. We would type in like janet.yellen@thefed.com. J Yellen at like fed.gov, like J at like Yellen at whatever. And so we would just be guessing these emails for like days and days. And then I remember one day Janet Yellen responded to me because I had invited her to go speak at Stanford. And she was like, I'm so sorry, Amy, I actually can't speak on that day. I have a meeting. And then later I realized it's because she had the Fed. She was like reporting.
Just a little bit busy, right?
No, she was like, I'm so sorry, Amy, I can't come to your student group.
Yeah, don't worry about the interest rate cut that we're going to announce.
Take care of our country. But like but the thing is, we got those experiences of kind of just being shameless. And then I actually even thought about this when I was fundraising, and like, you know, this feeling of like, hey, like if you could just show up in someone's inbox and talk to them And like, that's like not a thing that like you're taught, but I feel like especially at Stanford, the Stanford Women in Business, they were like really big on this. We did this to Cheryl. We got Melinda Gates to come in from cold emails. We got Meg Whitman. Like those things really kind of helped my business understanding of like, just try. Cause like, if you don't,
Shameless promotion, right?
yeah, exactly.
Love it.
You're your own biggest advocate.
What's the worst they can do? Say no, right?
Exactly.
That's what you all, wait, what's the worst they can do?
Yeah.
Take
There was
your
a lot
shot.
of no's.
Yep.
There was a lot of no's. There was definitely a lot of no's.
There always are.
Yeah.
100%.
So I was kind of curious, Shannon, because Shannon, you now live in Miami, right?
That's
Is that
right.
correct?
Yep.
So
Yep,
you
right.
tell us
Miami,
about that.
San
How'd you end up in
Francisco,
Miami, and juxtapose that to the whole California, Silicon Valley, San Francisco situation for us?
Yeah, so I had lived in the Bay Area for, over 10 years and had gone to school out there as well. And I spent my time mostly between Miami and San Francisco these days. And I think it's such an interesting place because I really think that image of Miami really doesn't do it justice of just how dynamic of a place it is. And that was something that I really discovered firsthand, spending more time during COVID. And I would say, it's so interesting because, San Francisco has the classics elements of, technology and starting companies. But, Miami has a lot of vibrance in a totally different way. And just being on the East Coast, there's a lot more diversity, and there's a lot more diverse opinions. People are not afraid to speak their mind. Everyone's bringing something different to the table. So I think there's a form of authenticity, a different form of authenticity, if you will, being in Florida that is actually just is quite refreshing. And so I guess that's one of my favorite things. And it doesn't hurt that my family's out here. And certainly we're in December, with this weather, it's, all of those things really, really, those don't hurt at all. So we definitely love Miami.
What do you think, Shannon, in terms of people always ask Tom and I, like, what's missing from the Florida tech ecosystem? You have a very unique perspective coming from the Mecca. What's missing from the Florida tech ecosystem, in your opinion?
I just think time, I think a lot of it is, it just takes time. I've met some incredible operators, incredible investors, really great connectivity. So I think all the building blocks are certainly there. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity, that's for sure. And it just takes time for great businesses to be built. I mean, look at all of the biggest companies today, right? It takes many decades to really get to that point. It could take a decade just for your company to stabilize, right? And so that's something that I'm really excited to see is just over time, as a lot of these companies, some of which I've invested in, some of which my friends run, and really rooting for them.
Well, we really haven't got into your companies. Why don't each of you spend a few minutes and tell us about your companies and what you're doing?
Go for it, Shannon. You want to go first?
Awesome. So, Tom, Saxon, you guys have a Google Home or Amazon Alexa? Do you guys have any of those in your homes?
Yep.
And what do you guys use them for?
I use it for two things. My daughter turning on music because she just pushes the button, and then to lock my house at night.
That's a good one.
Great. That's
and
pretty good.
I don't have or use. I tried one early on. I'm an early adopter, and I didn't like it. It didn't do anything for me. So I'm kind of waiting for it to be useful.
Exactly. And I think those two answers are really indicative of how people feel about smart speakers. One, play a little music. The other, it's not actually quite that useful. And in today's age of LLMs, why are smart speakers not that smart? And so that's really what we're doing over here at Open Home, which is a smart speaker SDK that allows developers to turn any device into a smart speaker. Think voice activated TVs, voice activated cars, voice activated toys, voice activated sound bars. And there's a wide range of things that can really be smart speakers. And so that's really the focus of what we're doing at Open Home.
I've gotten so used to using like GPT, and then so I try to talk to my Google Home at night as if it's GPT because I'll just be wondering things there, and It's so bad. It's like remarkably bad.
But it's still better than Siri.
It is still better than Siri, 100%. Yeah. Low bar though. Very low.
That's
very low bar.
That's a low bar.
And there's
But
a reason.
I think Shannon, I told you this before, but if you can have it so I can talk to my TV and I just want to watch something, and whoever cracks that, I can say, hey, just put on the latest episode of Yellowstone or whatever, and I don't have to think about what streaming services is on, what channels it on, how do I get to it. Whoever fixes that, they're going to own the world, I swear to God.
Oh, yeah. I mean, voice, I think, is such a powerful medium. It's so much easier to communicate. And there's a reason, right, that we're having this conversation. There's a reason these podcasts are so awesome, is because you really you learn a lot through this medium of being able to actually just talk naturally. So I think this is really what's missing right now as far as like a user interface goes, is we're glued to our screens, we're glued to typing, and ultimately it's not the most efficient or natural way to be able to communicate. And so, I think with AI, this is one of the greatest locks of our generation that we're going to see, is suddenly now we can interact in a much more intuitive way through voice. So we're very excited with the work that's been going on at Open Home and to support the developer ecosystem that are building cool things, and the enterprises that are, wanting better experiences for their consumers. So we're very stoked about what's happening in the future.
So I might be able to get away from that when not only I finally find the streaming service that I think the show's on, I do that search and they put the whole keyboard and you have to do with the mouse. Is that insane that we're doing that in the year 2024? I can't believe it.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, a lot of things are, and I think that's the reality of hardware as well. As we live in the physical world, and so there's a lot of devices out there, and still those are very old school. And so there's a whole opportunity of just being able to take a lot of these old school industries and bring them into where we're at now. Not to even mention all of the really creative possibilities of what's going to happen once people are actually able to communicate through voice. I mean, it's going to start, we think, with the home and appliances, eventually cars, but eventually talking toys, but eventually, why not robots? Why not accessibility, right? As you're moving through the world, there's so many applications like that are just no-brainers once you're in the industry, and really being able to see the great lift that it can provide.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, something that's interesting, Tom, part of the reason that we were so excited about the investment was getting away from screens. Everybody's obsessed with their phone. They're on it 24/7. They're constantly looking at a screen. A, it's not good for you by any means in terms of constantly being glued to your phone. B, straining your eyes, all these things that are negatives. I look at my daughter who's 2 years old, and she's, trying to grab a phone because she sees us on it. This new world with AI and with the advancements of NLP, really getting away from screens and using natural language. I think now the next question is, what's the new medium? Is it a screen? Probably not. What's next in terms of how do you consume this content?
Well, on the screen issue that you brought up, it may not be so good for us, is a good segue into your company, Amy.
Yeah.
Tell us about
definitely.
Manifest.
We are constantly, I always joke that our biggest competitor isn't another wellness product. It's TikTok is like where our users are living. Mm-hmm. Manifest is a Gen Z mental health company. We build these really bite-sized interactive ways for people to engage with wellness. And so we built this app and we kind of treat it like everyone's personalized toolkit for well-being. And so people go, they talk into the app, they get positive affirmations, personalized meditation, they get fully AI generated challenges directly for them. And so it might be something like, Tom, here's your, 48-day challenge to get over being competitive with your brother. And
I don't think that doesn't exist.
It must take
enough time.
Here's your 48-year challenge.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. 48 years.
Competitive with your brother. And so it's something that no one else could ever offer. We kind of hear this a lot, with our responses. I remember during one of the hurricanes down in Florida, we had users who were talking to Manifest, and they were really stressed about the hurricane. They were also stressed about something that was going on in school. They were also stressed about their relationship with their boyfriend at the time. And we started sending them notifications that were like, it's okay. And please be safe and handle these things and XYZ. And it's something that offers them a way of being seen that is totally and completely personalized to them. And it's been really magical to build, especially in today's world where Gen Z is so lonely, so isolated. I think people are barely even starting to understand how much COVID really impacted those social relationships at a very early age, and also how social media has continued to impact those relationships with each other, with comparison, with feeling like they're enough, with feeling like they're going to achieve things in the world. And so I think, where Manifest is really building that self-belief back into people and taking really small interactions. It could be you complete a challenge with us for less than a minute, and you do that a couple times per day, and making that as easy for them as opening TikTok is.
Well, you're tackling a huge problem, and depression and anxiety in Gen Z is off the charts. I think it's epidemic.
Epidemic. That's the word that's
what
used.
Biden
Right?
called it. But I find this interesting in trying to prepare for the pod. I was looking at, I think I saw this on your LinkedIn or something, that 1 out of every 3 people are using Manifest are using it for romantic relationships.
It's almost close to 50% now. It's pretty nuts.
Wow.
But our 50% of our topics are around romantic relationships, and so that can be a breakup, ghosting, heartbreak, a situationship, feeling lonely because the other person has broken up with you, etc. But people come and they, I think the last time I looked at it, but there was like 33 million manifestations, and over half of that was about relationships, which is pretty high.
Does it work for just Gen Zers?
I was going to say, Tom, this is more effective for you than your brother's situation. You need to get on here for this relationship issues.
I've been single for 15 years, and I'm not known I'm known for not being very good at relationships, and I can use all the help I can get. So,
come talk to me. We'll give you a personal consult.
I was going to say, I got a holiday gift for you, premium subscription.
Exactly. Well, but if you think about it, if you think about what someone cares about, I mean, for their entire lives, but especially our core demographic is kind of like 18 to 35. When you think about what someone cares about in their 20s, for many people, before their careers, it is am I dating someone? Do I have a partner? Am I feeling lonely right now? All my friends are getting married. I'm not. Everyone else is dating someone. I'm not. And so these things are coming up a lot. And especially in this dating age, which, we're not at all a dating app, but people don't meet people organically anymore.
yeah.
And so our audience feels extremely lonely all the time. And yeah, the relationship one it was a shock to me even when I saw the stats. Relationships is by far number 1, and then the next ones all jumble around, but it can be anxiety, it can be loneliness, it can be work, it can be anything related to just major events that are happening in life causing anxiety.
Well, it reminds me of years ago, I spent some time with Chad Hurley. I don't know if you know who that is. He's the guy that founded YouTube and sold it 18 months later for $1.8 billion. And I remember asking him, this is way back before YouTube was ever YouTube TV or any of that. Hey, Chad, when you started, YouTube, did you have any idea that there were going to be these we call them influencers today. They weren't even called influencers. These people that make a living and have all these channels, and did you? And he really didn't. He was like, no, yeah. I just was using it to share videos with people they just share videos of their kids and families and stuff like that. So it's amazing. If you build a great tool, what other people could do with it. And you're really doing that with Manifest, right?
Totally.
And I think
one thing that I wanted to ask you too.
What I was going to say is what I think is amazing is also that we are still just now understanding the effects of social media. So we're starting to see it now, but there's a lot of long tail ramifications as well. And I think that's one of the interesting things that Manifest is doing is really starting to collect information and data about how people are processing things, creating insights around this new population of what it's been like and some of the struggles of being really isolated. And some of the takes that I've heard the team be able to share is certainly really interesting and I think really, really novel and not something that is widely known yet. And so I think that what they're working on is a really important issue that's going to have a lot of long-term ramifications. I really do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, very cool.
In terms of working with VCs, you two recently have taken on money from two of the largest VCs in the world. Very exciting, and we can get into that if you're comfortable talking about it. But I'd be interested to hear the differences working with some of the large Silicon Valley Tier 1 VCs compared to a Florida Funders, which you guys have been working with for, give or take a year and a half or almost 2 years. What are those kind of core differentiators? I'm sure there's pros and cons to both sides, but interested to hear a little bit about that.
I love working with Florida funders. I feel like you guys.
Oh, thanks, Hank.
Thank you, Henry.
Well, I feel like we know you guys as people also because not just because you invested in like my company, you invested in Shannon's company. You guys are like part of the family now. I feel like you guys really take on this very human, get to know you approach. And I think it's not a bad thing at all, but like the big firms just have a ton of portfolio companies. It is very different in terms of how they engage with you because they, it's not like they're going through 100 updates. They're going through like 2,000 updates on any given moment, or maybe it could be like 5,000 updates from people. And so it's a very different experience. I feel like where you guys really shine is like that more curated, like, hey, Amy needs this right now, or she's thinking about this, and we're going to give her this introduction to someone who it's very carefully thought out. And I think the experience with some of the bigger firms is like, oh, we have a ton of resources, we have a ton of connections, but you need to come to us and tell us what you need because frankly, we're worrying about so many things right now that like we're not proactively thinking about that for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think it's been such a fabulous process being part of the Florida Funders family. And we've felt so supported. And it's been great to be able to go on the deep dives and really talk about the industry, think about where the future is going. I think it's been something that has been a really exceptional experience. For us, we ended up, because of the work that we do with appliances and OEMs, we do a lot of work over in Asia. And so that's originally how we got connected with SoftBank and their ecosystem. And with SoftBank Ventures Asia, their focus was so heavily on really being able to open up that region. And that was something that we had originally needed. But, I think one of the things that was so important for Open Home was picking the right regional partners and every single aspect of the places that the business needed to be able to scale. And so we were really honored to be welcomed into the Florida Funders family and really be supported through the South Florida ecosystem. And we've benefited from that tremendously.
Well, thank you. And we're honored to be partners with you guys and excited to watch as you guys build your companies and be part of that journey and help you any way that we can.
And I'm actively working on getting adopted by the Wu family. So if anybody has any inroads there, they could help me out with that. I make a mean Hanukkah Laki. Okay, I'll give you that.
I'm sure our dad would always wanted a son, so there's a good spot there.
All right. Well, anything else?
I think let's talk a little bit about AI because both Shannon and Amy's companies are AI businesses. Tom and I always say you can't have a conversation in 23 or 24 without talking about AI. And I don't know if you guys could be able to have the businesses without the forward thinking of generative AI. Talk a little bit about AI, and I know you'll hit in the lightning round too, but a little bit about AI and how it's changing the way that your business is operating and you guys live on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I'll speak a little bit about, I think, the industry in general and having, followed its evolution over time. Well, it started off in many ways, it is still very research oriented. There are still many more leaps that are happening and insights that are still coming out. And there are a lot of folks working on some very, very cutting edge aspects and testing out different methodologies with LLMs and constantly putting out, new papers on what's been going on. And that has been, for the most part, a lot of the industry has been in the academic world. And so we are right now starting to see, for the first time, the beginning of commercialization as AI actually reaches the end consumer, starts touching people's lives in a meaningful way. And I think that's what's so exciting about the opportunity today is that we're just now at this precipice, but a lot of the industry is still, for the most part, very, very academic. And so that is one of the things that we really hope to see evolve and change is that, things in the real world really actually benefit from AI and are able to adopt it. And that path to commercialization is paved with many great products and services out there. And Amy, for you
I
guys,
think,
it wouldn't have even been possible without everything that's happened.
yeah, I think at Manifest, we think about like, how do we use AI everywhere? Like, not just in a response to a user, but like now, we change every question in Manifest dynamically based on what the users previously said to us. We store your history using AI to look at like, what is the half life of everything you've ever said to us, and how long should that stay in your user content preferences? So, if Tom says something like, I'm hungry, it's very short. If Shannon says something like, I'm really stressed about work, it's a very long-term problem, or I'm building a company that's like a years long thing that will go into her memory bank. We also use it with notifications. Like I remember Duolingo, which is like one of our best comps. They're, $7 billion public company, but they spent millions of dollars researching like when was the best time to send someone a notification across all their users. Like when is the best time to send someone a notification? We now, with the power of AI, like look at that on a individual user basis. Like what is the best time to send, Amy a notification, not just users in general. And so I think and obviously down to like we kind of have the anti-school, like I was like, plagiarize as much code as you possibly can, like use AI to write as much code as you possibly can, and kind of encouraging people to use those tools, I think has been really fun. I think you still need a pretty discerning human eye to look through everything. We're not quite at the stage where you can just, like plop in your code and let it run. But it's definitely, I think it allows us to be really lean as a company and to have the impact that a company with probably like 3x the size would have taken, prior to this current AI revolution.
Oh yeah,
We talk about that. What's going to be the first unicorn with less than 20 employees?
Yeah. I think it's totally
even.
possible. I think
Yeah.
it's totally possible. I think people now get weirded out that the headcounts are low, like you're not growing, and it's like, no, you are just more efficient,
Yeah.
Right. We
Definitely.
encourage our internal processes to be filled with as much AI as possible as well, and really being able to fully embrace it and really understand the new technology. I mean, the tools are coming out every single day. There is something really new, and slowly, I think more and more industries are really starting to see that shift. So, yeah, we're quite excited about it. Even in the time period that Open Home we've been operating, which is this year, we've been able to see so many shifts on what has been going on, and talk about the level of even like local LLMs and more niche LLMs. Like we're constantly testing and looking through hundreds of different new advancements. And one of the beauties of what the advantage that we have is that we have this developer ecosystem, and there's several hundred developers submitting amazing applications. And so in many ways, our team is really learning from our community, and they're really teaching us, wow, this is what's possible. And so we have these kind of light bulb moments all the time because the community is full of technologists who are really at the front line of cutting edge tech.
You want to get into it?
Yeah, we'll wrap up. This has been great. So we like to finish with a lightning round. So I'll ask the question, and each one of you can answer. Both of you answer each question, and the idea is that they're quick answers. So the first question is, are we in an AI bubble?
I think in the short run, yes. In the long run, no. I think it's appropriately sized.
Yeah.
Shannon?
Great answer. I would have to second that. I think there's a lot of froth right now, and I think people are still figuring out where things are moving. But I think that is very much necessary, that momentum and that excitement for big breakthroughs to happen, and that really true adoption in the market. So I do think there is a bit of a long tail for, again, commercialization to end up occurring. It might not happen exactly on the time frames that everyone is saying it's not going to be tomorrow, but I do think it's going to be within our lifetime, and sooner rather than later, and probably sooner than many people realize.
Yeah, it's interesting. You guys weren't around for the late 90s for the dot-com boom, then bust, but then it happened. It just took longer.
We were around in the
AI is
late
moving
90s.
We were alive, Todd.
You're alive. You guys
We weren't investing in technology at that, but maybe these two were. But
you're running a dot-com startup that blew up, but it eventually happened. So, but AI is moving so quick; it'll be interesting to see that. So, Bitcoin, as you know, we've been watching ever since the Trump and Elon effect and everything that's going on with MicroStrategy, all that. So it's over, cracked 100,000 for the first time. If you were to look a year out, where's Bitcoin a year from today, price wise? What's your guess?
Oh man, this has been the question of pretty much every year over the last decade. I think now that we've cracked six figures, there isn't really as much a pressure now, and we're starting to see new administration which have different policies. We're starting to see governments really start to adopt. We're starting to see bigger financial institutions come into the space. I mean, I really don't see what the upper bound really, what the limit really could be at this point. And so I guess safe to say in another year from now, it would not be crazy to have doubled again. So, I mean, these things go in cycles, but we're, tracking it really closely and excited for, a new financial instrument out there.
So 200,000 a year from now.
Hold me to it.
Roughly.
Shannon is the biggest permabull on Bitcoin and all crypto in general. She is, and like in the lowest of troughs, she'll be like, time to buy more.
that's a good investor.
Right?
No, exactly. I'm like, we're in the trough of despair right now. What are you talking about? But Shannon is a permabull.
I'll leave with this. In this life, one thing counts. Buy Bitcoin, large amounts.
Yeah. If you walk into Shannon's Miami home, the first sign it says "Buy Bitcoin." That's literally the sign.
Hey, where are you with it?
I was gonna say a quarter million. I feel like there's the administration. There's a lot of things looking good, and now the ETFs, BlackRock behind it. These things are going to start entering retirement accounts.
Yeah. So you're both bullish. That's good. And with David Sachs being named the crypto czar, right? So that'll be interesting. Okay, the Mag 7 versus startups when it comes to who's going to win the big AI innovate, the great AI companies. So historically, the incumbents have never been the ones to make the transition to the new technology. You guys are both running AI startups. Do the Mag 7 end up dominating AI, or is it going to be new startups like you guys and ChatGPT and who else?
I think it depends at which layer. That's my answer. I think at the infrastructure layer, the big companies just have a huge advantage in capital. But I think at an application layer, I think, in terms of touching consumers, like GPT touches a lot of consumers, but in terms of more like verticalized solutions, those are for sure going to be startups, because those big companies, it's not going to move the needle to them to start some sort of more verticalized solution.
Right. Like, what are the iteration cycles that are necessary to really build great, delightful product experiences? I think that's something that startups really have an edge on. And there can be iteration, right? And so you can really have many companies really vying to create the best experience possible. That being said, the challenges with compute and the challenges with having access to better chips, I think those are all things that are extremely resource intensive. Not to say that startups, if they had those resources, wouldn't have been able to do it, but I do think it is very, very challenging today, and it requires a lot of interconnectivity, a lot of ability to kind of take really, really long bets. And that is something that I think that startups are having a challenge with. You're not going to compete, on making better chips, for example. That's not something that can happen overnight. But the actual experience itself, I've, personally seen many tools. Manifest is a great example of one where that is just not a company that could necessarily come out of one of those big companies. It really takes so much quick iteration. I mean, their team is working, day and night. There's always something new on the app. So it's very cool to see that kind of output for sure. And that's something that founders really excel at.
I think if you put OpenAI into the startup camp, then we have really good odds of winning both.
Yeah. it boosts the odds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The betting markets are showing.
It is a startup. It's a nonprofit. Well, no, it's not a nonprofit.
Well, it is a nonprofit. What is it?
Okay. Autonomous vehicles, robo-taxi, Cruise dropped out at last week or whatever they're at. So GM's throwing in the towel on this. Obviously, when you talk about needing big resources, lots of capital, this is a market. Who wins this? Is it Waymo? Is it or is it Elon and Tesla
or Uber
or some startup? Well, I think Waymo and Uber are kind of joining forces together.
It's hard to bet against Elon. I don't want to be on the other side of that bet. So, if he's on the other side of it, he's definitely on a winning streak right now. But yeah, I think it's still anyone's game. And what's amazing is I think there hasn't been enough celebration that we have self-driving cars now. It's like 10 years ago when we were at Stanford, people were saying, oh, it's coming. And then finally it came, which is, really underrated for technologists to actually be able to see these innovations come to life. And now I feel like in San Francisco and other cities, it's like, oh yeah, we just have self-driving cars. Like where is this, celebration of the fact that we have autonomous vehicles now? I think that's pretty incredible. So I think we're still a little bit, there's still a bit of infrastructure that it's probably going to continue to emerge. But yeah, I would say time has proven that
so your bet's on Elon.
My bet has to be on Elon. That's right.
All right, Amy.
My bet is also on Elon, especially as of this last election, because my bet with the self-driving cars is it's whoever has the most favorable government regulation. And I think Elon's in a very good position for that right now. I think he's positioned himself with hundreds of millions of dollars to be in the right place at the right time to get those regulations. And if you guys been in a Waymo yet? Like it's there.
Have you been in one time? I have not either.
No, I gotta do it. Yeah.
You guys got to go to San Francisco and get in one. We're done. We've solved the problem. And I don't think people realize that. And so now it truly is just whether or not people allow them into their cities, on the roads, et cetera. But it's not really a technology problem anymore.
Yeah. And I think from a tech standpoint, at least my research and understanding of it is Waymo is actually quite a bit ahead of Elon in terms of the autonomous driving and the sensors they use. And, he's totally against LiDAR and, when I get into the details. But in terms of number of autonomous miles driven, I think Waymo is way, way ahead of Elon. But I'm with you guys. It's really hard to
bet against Elon.
Is he on a roll right now or what?
Yeah, exactly. Well, next time you all are in San Francisco, we'll get a Waymo and we'll go for a little joyride.
Great. It's a date. We're in. So my last lightning round question is AI. Is it a job creator or a job destroyer?
I have to take the positive on this one. I think it's definitely a creator. Shannon.
I think humans are very resilient. We've seen and gone through many different evolutions, and just like any other major shift in humanity, it's just another technology, just like anything else. And I think humans are like an interesting species, because if you put us on a blank rock, right, leave us for a few weeks, you're gonna get infrastructure, you're gonna get some art, you're gonna get everything. I mean, part of the process of being human is to create.
I'm gonna need manifest if you do that, but
right. You might be dealing with some other challenges during that time period, but I think we are very resilient. I do think, and I think we create roles for ourselves. And in some ways, I do believe we're in this post-capitalist society now, and to be honest, are most jobs even really necessary? I mean, if anything, I think most things are starting to get into the world of just entertaining us, right? And doing it because we really want this thing to exist, not necessarily because we need it. And unless you're really working in a really critical industry like healthcare, building buildings, food supply chain. I mean, our needs are getting increasingly solved. And so I would have to say, like, I don't think that it's going to be this great destroyer of jobs in the future. I think it's just going to be more of the same, just with more iterations and hopefully better quality of life.
Just with some help, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Ladies, this has been great. Thank you so much. We're raving fans of founders at Florida Funders, and so it's going to be so much fun to watch you guys over the coming years and be part of the journey, like I said earlier. And we're also raving fan of female founders. We love female founders. We don't have enough of them. We're going to be cheering for you and rooting for you and trying to help you any way we can. And
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you two so much. I will say, Amy spoke last year at our Investor Summit. This year, Shannon's going to speak at the Investor Summit, February 26th. So if any of our investors are interested and are looking for an invitation to that, just let Tom or I know. We'd love to have you there. It's going to be in Tampa on February 26th. And once again, Shannon will be a part of that this year. But thank you two so much for everything. And thank you to our audience. If you loved what you heard today, go on YouTube, subscribe, follow, give us a like, throw us a comment. And Tom, as always, it's a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thanks,
so
everybody.
much.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thanks for spending your time with Skin in the Game VC today. If you want to learn more about investing in early stage tech like a venture capitalist, be sure to visit the Florida Funders website at floridafunders.com. Join our angel network at no cost and get access to Florida Funders VC vetted investment opportunities in the next great breakout tech companies.